Hi everyone. How promiscuous were white women during slavery, cheating on their husbands with black slaves? Asking ourselves the reasons why white women like black men is a question whose answer is within social speculation, without a real basis to support this false belief of this preference when we emphasize only the physical characteristics of the black man as the reason for these without understanding the real factors of this union. Given the social inequality and racial differences of both, if we start from the Spanish caste system, still in force in many Latin American nations in a subtle way, this type of relationship is not viewed favorably in the determinant of this type of relationship. Within the context of hierarchical relationships between the different racial groups in the United States, where the black man occupied an inferior position to the white woman, that tells you that the marital relations were practically non-existent, although some historians think otherwise. How common were marital relations between a black slave and a white woman? According to the book White Women, Black Men, Illicit Sex in the 19th Century South, written by Martha Hodes, on 17th century Virginia's Eastern Shore, 2 marriages took place between free black men and free white women in the 1650s, and 3 more in the 1660s. In addition, 1 slave married a white woman, and at least half a dozen slaves fathered mulatto children by white maidservants during the 1680s and 1690s. Walsh concludes that unions of black men and white servant women were usually consensual, unlike many of the women's relationships with white men. In the 1700s, sexual relations between Southern black men and white women occurred less frequently, or at least much less publicly. Nevertheless, such liaisons continued to exist. In a remarkable job of detective work, Hodes mines bastardly and divorce cases for information about interracial sex and finds a surprising number, including 4 divorces in Virginia and 2 in North Carolina, granted to white husbands whose wives bore mulatto children. In one 1824 case in Virginia, an elderly man named Lewis Bourne unsuccessfully sued for divorce, claiming that his much younger wife was involved in a 7-year relationship with a local slave. The court apparently concluded that Bourne had failed to adequately control his wife's behavior and denied his petition. Did white slaveholder women really sexually exploit black slaves? We could also talk about the case about the writing sexual exploitation of the enslaved, taken from the work of Thomas Foster. The 1825 divorce case of the Virginians Dorothea and Lewis Bourne illustrates white women's agency in initiating intimacy with enslaved men. Neighbors and friends testified that Dorothea Bourne had long pursued a relationship with Edmund, a man enslaved by her neighbors, the Richardsons. Rudith Richardson testified that Bourne was often seen lurking about her Negroes' houses, and others testified that they believed Bourne had several children by Edmund. Notably, these witnesses did not express shock, suggesting that interactions were not uncommon. According to Thomas Foster, white women, just like white men, also engaged in sexual relations with enslaved men. As with enslaved women, some light-skinned men often found themselves the particular target of such sexual exploitation. Richard Hinton, a white abolitionist, testified to the American Freedmen's Inquiry Commission that he had never encountered a light-skinned formerly enslaved man who has not told me of instances where he had been compelled, either by his mistress or by white women of the same class, to have connection with them. As Thomas Buckley found in his analysis of divorce in antebellum Virginia, roughly 9% of Virginia's divorce petitions from 1786 to 1851 were for interracial adultery, with 23 of these petitions coming from white men who complained about their wives' relationships with black men. What could be the real reason why white women is attracted to a black man? In recent times, we have had an increase in this type of marital relationship between a black man and a white woman, based on common qualities, affections, and interests that go beyond a simple physical attraction. Starting from the fact that at this moment we are in an era where women have acquired certain rights and freedoms, it could be said that there is a preference of the white woman for the black man due to the characteristics that the black man has in relation to the white man. And regarding the size, toughness, and ethymine of the black man as the reason for this preference. We would be treating the black man once again as an object. This would be a negative attitude of the white woman, as a remnant that reminds us of the colonial system, discarding other reasons why the white woman prefers a black man to establish a marital relationship that is mutually beneficial for both. In all peoples, there are always myths where the expectations that give life are often divorced from the reality of that behavior. The size, ethymine, of the black man in the fit as the reasons for this preference of the white woman for some black man falls within this myth, which is often influenced by the social morbidity created around this type of relationship, where the unknown creates unrealistic expectations about the rest, and little attention is paid to the real reasons for the marital relationship between a white man and a black man, where the love of one for the other is the reason for this union. Contrary to many of the marital relationships during the slave system, in which the white woman, like the white man who owned slaves, only saw the black woman as a simple work tool, in some cases an object of pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, if you like this type of topic, leave your comments or share this type of material.